Hello YouTubers and fellow hams. I'm a little bit bummed. I really wanted to get going on that vertical antenna this week, but right now it's 30 degrees here in early April. Yesterday it was up to the 60s, but it thunderstormed all day. And then the wind blew like crazy, and now it's 30 degrees, and it's going to be cold on through the weekend. Next week, though, it looks like the long-term forecast says we're getting into the 50s, and so, hey, maybe we'll get on that vertical antenna next week. I really want to get that thing up. But I thought I haven't done a new hams tip video in a while, and I thought I would talk about signal reporting. Now, signal reporting, you'll hear hams on the air if you're a new ham, and they're saying things like 5.9, 5.8, 5.7. If you're getting into Morse code, there's three numbers. You'll hear like 5, 6, 9. What do those numbers mean? Well, you probably have had some exposure to that in your testing, or you're studying for your tests, with the RST system: readability, strength, and tone. It's a three-number system with a range of 1 to 5 on readability, 1 to 9 on strength, and 1 to 9 on tone. And tone only applies to CW or Morse code, or perhaps digital modes, but it's really defined for Morse code. Now, where did the RST system start? Where did it come from? Well, it was of course proposed by a ham. Way back in 1934 in QST, there was an article published by Arthur M. Bratton, W2BSR. And at that time, Morse code was still the primary means of communication. AM was starting to get utilized, but most hams were building their own transmitters using Morse code. You see, there was very little commercial radio gear available at the time. So I'd say probably 80 to 90% of hams that were on the air with home-built radios. And radio propagation was still just being learned about. It wasn't totally understood yet at that point. The ionosphere wasn't studied to the point where it was really understood what was going on. So these were the early days of radio. And up to that point, signal reporting was very convoluted and complex. If we go back to that article and we look at the first line in there, QSA3 R7 T5, the above report translated literally is: the strength of your signal is fairly good, readable but with difficulty, good strong signals, copyable through some QRM and QRN, nearly DC tone, good filter, but has key thumps or backwave. Wow, that's a lot said in those weird little symbols there. But obviously, that type of signal reporting would take some time, a lot of things to send there, several letters to send, and probably a table that you had to have handy to look up the meaning of each of those symbols and letters and understand what was being told to you in the report. So yeah, kind of complicated. And what Arthur proposed was a far simpler system, the RST system. Now, if we look at the numbers as defined originally by that system, you can see that they're pretty descriptive. The actual original definition, which I don't have handy, was even more wordy and more descriptive, very precise, but still broken down into just a few digits. Now, readability and strength are self-explanatory. How readable is the signal? How well can you understand what's being said or sent? Things that would affect readability would be things like atmospheric noise, or QRN, static, interference, fading, QSB, where their signal fades up and down and you lose a few words here and there. Those are the things that would affect readability. And it's really kind of an estimation. How readable are they? 1 to 5. Most people will estimate the same numbers for the same conditions. If I'm hearing just about everything you're saying, I'm missing an occasional word because there's a little bit of fading, I might give you a 4 for readability. You're almost perfectly readable. I'm just dropping a word here and there. So that's readability. Pretty easy to estimate. Strength, As you can see from the table, it's fairly descriptive what they want you to use for the numbers. As a shortcut, and this is not, staying true to the table, but as a shortcut, what I'll usually do is I'll just look at the S meter. And if their signal is swinging my S meter up to an S6, I'll give them a 6 for strength. Why not? It makes sense. You got that S meter on there. 1 through 9, S0 through 9. You could do that as a shortcut. Nowadays, people are not that persnickety about how precise that signal reporting is. It's really just kind of an estimate anyway. So that's a shortcut for you. Just glance at the S meter. How high is that swinging? If it's swinging to an S8, hey, give them an 8 for the strength. If it's swinging above 9, give them a 9 and maybe say plus. You're a 5-9 plus, letting them know that they're swinging up over S9. It's universally understood, and that will give them a good estimate. Now, tone. This really only applies to Morse code. And this goes back to those early days where most hams were building their own transmitters. You would, buy a vacuum tube or two and maybe wind up your coils and scrounge a condenser out of an old piece of equipment somewhere. Maybe buy a transformer or maybe wind your own. And filtering of the AC line was done with smaller capacitors and a choke in a sort of a pie arrangement. And filtering was a little difficult to get right. Under load, you'd still get some ripple through there, and it would give your CW note a hum, a 60-cycle hum to it. Instead of a boop, you'd hear a whoop, kind of thing. There were key clicks. If your keying was too harsh, if you were if it wasn't filtered or you were switching with too much current, you'd get a little pop at the beginning of the note, a little click right at the beginning of the note. And a lot of harmonics would come with that. The other thing was chirping. If your power supply wasn't adequate for the amount of draw that your amplifier section of your transmitter was pulling, the frequency of your transmitted signal might shift when you transmit. So you'd get a little pew, 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 sort of a sound where the pitch would change as you keyed it down. And that's a chirp. So there was, as you can see from the table, mostly they were talking about AC getting through ripple and harshness, but key click could also be factored in, chirp could be factored in. So again, very descriptive. But nowadays, most of our radios are very well built. Our commercial gear, like this Kenwood back here, is going to produce a nice, clean CW tone. Unless there's something very wrong with it, most tone is going to be fine, and that's almost always going to be a 9. Now, where that number might be useful for reporting to somebody is if you were taking part in straight key night, when a lot of people bring their old radios out, their old home-built tube transmitters and such, then those reports will be very helpful to them. And occasionally, just on the air, I'll tune around and I'll hear somebody that has some AC hum on their CW note, or a chirp or a click. And I'll give them an accurate number here with the tone number, Accurate as far as it's an estimate. If you give somebody like a 6 for tone, it's probably going to raise their eyebrows and they're going to wonder, okay, something's wrong with my tone. What is it? And they're going to ask you. They're going to say, okay, what's going on with my tone? And you can tell them key click or a hum or a ripple. So that could still be very useful. But in most cases, 90% of the time or better, 99% of the time probably, the CW tone that you're hearing is going to be pure and it's just going to be a 9. So when you go to give your report, RST, readability, strength, and 9 for the tone. You don't have to think about that much. Obviously, single sideband, digital modes, and so on, you're only going to give the first 2 numbers, readability and strength. And I've already talked about how to estimate those. So that's the basics of signal reporting. It is a useful tool. I really wish more people would give accurate signal reports. I'm always interested in how my signal's coming across, how strong it is, how clear it is, and how well they can understand me. If they're having trouble understanding me, if I'm down in the noise, giving me a readability of 3 will let me know that I probably should repeat some things, like my QTH, my location, or maybe I should spell my name phonetically, since you're having a hard time understanding me. You see, that's useful. Same thing with strength. Strength, I find interesting. How well is my signal getting from point A to point B? You know, if I'm weak and you give me a 3 or a 4 for strength, I'll make a mental note. You know, that's interesting to note. What time of day is it? What frequency am I on? Maybe I'll go and look at the space weather site and see what the sun's up to, because that's useful information to improve my understanding of how my signal is getting out there and how my station is operating. So it's kind of a pet peeve of mine when people just bark a 5.9 at you. They don't put any thought into it, you know. I've had more often than I'd like to count where somebody's come back and said, you know, you're 5.9. Oh, by the way, I didn't get your QTH. You're kind of down in the noise. What? You know, take a little time, put a little effort into it, and just give me a signal report. But that's me. That's my personal niggle. And you know, one other thing: contests and contesters. I'm not gonna be pooping on the contesters here. Don't get your dander up. I'm just gonna make an observation here. In contest rules, they always want the signal report to be part of the exchange, but virtually nobody in a contest gives you an accurate signal report. They always say 5.9. No matter what your signal is, they always just say 5.9 because they can't be bothered to take the time to look at it. They're in a contest. They're wanting to go bang, 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 bang and get these contests done. So why even make a signal report part of the exchange? So ARRL and you contest rule makers, nobody's going to be doing signal reports anyway, so why even make that part of the exchange? In fact, wouldn't that be a good thing to drop that? Because then you would just speed up your exchange, not having to say that 5.9. Just a thought. Well, anyway. So that's my rundown of the signal reporting system. I hope that you new hams found that somewhat helpful. And yeah, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.